So welcome again. My name is Charles Clark. I'm thrilled to be here and joined by Natalie of the Gap today. Hi, Nat.
Hi.
So look, we'll jump in pretty quickly because we've got a lot to cover today, and we're obviously conscious of your time. But before we kick off, for anyone who's not familiar, maybe with the Boma or the Gap, I know that a lot of you have come from our databases. I'll just give you a quick background of who we both are and how we work together in partnership. So Boma is the digital marketing tool designed for accountants, while Gap is an amazing business development system, and again, also designed specifically for accountants. And the idea behind our partnership is that the Gap content, in combination with our digital marketing tool, delivers you a really unique opportunity to enhance those client relationships, drive growth within your firm, and really maximize efficiency all the way across your practice when it comes to marketing and even sales. So we very much like to think that with Boma and the Gap together, it's going to enable you to work smarter and not harder, which obviously in these times is something we are all endeavoring to do. So I'll hand over quickly to Nat, and she's going to have a look at what we're going to cover today and then dive into the pre-work.
Awesome. Thanks, Charles. Hopefully everyone can see my screen.
Yep.
And I'm not muted. Cool. All right. So first of all, we're going to take a look at your pre-work responses. So thank you, everyone, for submitting those. And we'll discuss a little bit about those areas you're finding it easiest to sell and whether we can help you push beyond that with the improvement meeting. We're then going to look at the value ladder and why it matters, and we'll dive into what we've defined at the Gap as a simple improvement meeting format and how that should help you drive sales in some of those key advisory services. We'll also look at how to position and generate interest in the meeting through your marketing channels, and we'll go for a bit of a dive into the Gap and Boma in terms of those delivery tools and those processes that should help you get runs on the board there. And finally, how you can use the meeting, leverage the meeting for greater advisory outcomes. So let's first take a look at your pre-work. And we asked you what advisory services you offer. And it wasn't super surprising to see that, quite similarly to the UK, the top advisory service offered is management reporting, closely followed by cash flow forecasting and business planning with a bit of coaching. So great to see that coaching and business planning are moving up in terms of, how many people are offering those, which is great. And then we asked which service you found it easiest to position to your clients. And overwhelmingly, New Zealand and Australia, people are finding it easier to position cash flow forecasting and management reporting, and business planning's taken quite a share there as well, which is great to see. So I thought we could delve into some of your responses as to why that was the case, just briefly. And overwhelmingly, these were just some of the comments that came through for cash flow forecasting. More related to number crunching. They're used to us preparing things around numbers. Economically at the moment, everyone is worried about cash flow, financing requirements, etc. I enjoy talking about cash flow. I get that one. And so a lot of people talking to the fact that it is closer to compliance, so perhaps it's more comfortable for them, it's a safe space for them, but also their clients are more inclined to expect to work with them on things that are closer to compliance. And then we looked at, there was a lot of commentary that came through for management reporting, and a lot of that speaking to the fact that they were tangible reports that had data in them and financial information, again, close to compliance and what their clients are used to seeing from them. And also a lot of themes speaking to the fact that it's easy to prepare them and send them out, and also it's a pretty low cost service. In fact, some people are rolling it into their compliance service or even providing them for free. So that was really interesting. A couple of people hinting to what we call at the Gap, the 3 essential services, or the trifecta, and that is that cash flow forecasting, that reporting and accountability coaching, and the annual business planning all together. Some comments around businesses realising they need this and deserve this, which is great. And then talking about business planning specifically, some firms are finding it easier because it's a very clearly defined outcome, the tangible business plan, and their clients are really enjoying working in this way with them. Then a few comments to the point that they want to offer advisory, but they struggle with how to position it or how to kind of go about generating interest in their advisory services. So hopefully some of the things we discussed today can help with that. So a quick quote for the session: "You can't climb the ladder of success with your hands in your pocket." Good old Arnie knows where it's at. It really is up to us, I guess, to get the clients on the advisory value ladder, but we don't need to execute bold and ambitious plans to do that. It can start with some pretty small steps. You know, the management reporting, for example, is a great step, even if that's something you offer as part of your compliance service. But once you get your clients on the value ladder, it's really easy to use smart marketing and conversations to move them further up and nurture them towards those premium advisory services that you want to be offering. So let's go a bit closer into the value ladder, just to kind of give you a bit of clarity around what I'm talking about, if this is new to you. And if you've seen it before, hopefully you get a distinction from it today. So essentially, the value ladder is a sales tool that's going to help customers of any business build brand trust and confidence to buy. So it allows you to take your customers on a journey from introduction right through to becoming a loyal advocate, and it starts with some effective marketing. So there's no specific rules around how you define your value ladder, and you might have different ladders for various services that you offer, but essentially it always starts with the initial offer being free, and as you move up the ladder from there, you increase your investment, but you also increase your return on investment, and the strength of the client relationship grows as you move up the value ladder too. So if we think about what the initial step one could be, it's got to be something free but of value. For example, sending out some insightful articles via Boma, or having some beautiful articles as gated content in your website that can be downloaded if someone inputs their contact information, for example, or delivering a highly educational webinar is another great initial offer where you're providing value before you attempt to extract it. And typically those are things that you want to be able to leverage across a big audience. Step two is really the lead magnet for your core advisory services. And we think that the improvement meeting is an excellent way to demonstrate the value of working with you. So this low cost meeting is going to allow your clients to dip their toe into your advisory offering. And it's particularly great if you're not super comfortable positioning some of those higher tier advisory services that have bigger price tags, because you can, you know, offer this one-off meeting and it has a nice compact price tag to go with it. So at the end of that meeting, you'll have documented a couple of strategies that, you know, the client can take on board and implement after the meeting. Whoops. And that is a great way to then position the value of ongoing coaching, of meeting more regularly to continue to extract the opportunities for your client to take away and then implement in between your next session so they can get that improvement over time. So at the end of that meeting, it's a real natural sell to move to something like ongoing coaching, but also it might be that a client's more interested in cash flow forecasting. So perhaps the first tier after an improvement meeting for them is a service like that. But essentially, as we move up, we're starting to think about things like the annual business plan, because we're introducing our clients through that improvement meeting to the disciplines of planning and implementing tasks and actions and the improvements that you get when you do that regularly. And essentially, we're hoping to get them right to the top of the value ladder, where we get them involved in that loyalty or that premium offering. And we think at the Gap that could be those three essential services: the annual forecast, the annual business plan, and that ongoing accountability coaching, which may include reviewing the management reports. So that's kind of really how you could define your value ladder. And we're going to take a deeper dive into step two, that improvement meeting, which is a great low risk opportunity to engage your clients and hopefully, demonstrate your value and get them further up the ladder. So what exactly is the improvement meeting? Just to recap, we think it's something that should be specific. So if you're looking to do an improvement meeting with a client, think about a specific area where they would benefit from making some improvements. So that may be cash flow and profit improvement. It might be that they need to go down a step and it's financial awareness improvement, or perhaps it's something to do with risk management or anything else. Now, we've created some content and tools for our GAP members to seamlessly deliver this meeting, and I'll show you a bit about the process that we've used soon. But essentially, it's a one-off meeting that's specific in nature to try and give some value, but also encourage your clients to move up and go into a more in-depth advisory service. But the beauty of it is that if they don't buy from you and they don't move up the value ladder, then you've still given them a lot of value and you've still built that rapport. And you're not out of pocket for it either. So it's commercially low risk for both advisor and client. So for today's webinar, we're going to look specifically at the cash flow and profit improvement meeting, as this is an area, as demonstrated by the pre-work, where people are feeling the pinch at the moment. So in this instance, we recommend you running a 90-minute meeting where you'll help your client calculate their cash conversion cycle, demonstrate the impact of small improvements, and identify some realistic improvement targets. And then you'll position the value of that ongoing coaching piece. And by attending this particular webinar, we make it really clear to our clients what we think they will get from that. So 4 points of value: understanding the difference between cash flow and profit. We're going to make it really clear to them in the meeting. We're going to help them discover the cash flow and profit drivers in their business so they can understand, what will happen if they start making these improvements. We're going to identify some specific ways to improve perhaps their debtor days, their inventory days, or their payable days. And we're going to help them understand the impact of small changes on their cash and profit position. So in this instance, Charles, it's best that we use really targeted kind of content to speak to the specific nature of this meeting. So perhaps you can jump into Boma and show us some of the content that we've got ready to go in there.
Yeah, just let me take over screen sharing. And is that sharing?
Nice. Yeah.
Great. So what we're seeing here in the Boma platform, I'm going to show you a variety of that cash flow improvement related content, as Nat said, that you can use to nurture your audience. And the first one we've got up here is improving debtor days. And as I scroll down, I'll just explain the reason why you would be publishing regular content like this. And that's, first off, it's going to demonstrate your knowledge of a topic that you want to get in front of your clients. And then secondly, it's a great way to have those existing and potential clients, I suppose, start to take that first initial step on the value ladder. Now, the nice thing is that, in the Boma content library, we have multiple pieces of GAP content, and you can see this one here is talking about profit and cash. And just to break down the layout of the page view, we've got the title, we've got a suggested image. Down here, we've got the social post along with hashtags. And then down the bottom, we've got the content that can be put into the email. Now, it's important to note that obviously everything in here is being optimized by the GAP. So there's not really anything that you need to do, but you can obviously, if you want to customize it further, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute, maybe put your own perspective or tone of voice on it, you have the freedom to do that in Boma. Now, as Nat mentioned, obviously they have a lot of their fantastic webinar kits in Boma. And the idea here is that if you want to deliver a webinar, obviously to promote it, you're going to need to send out emails and social posts. And you can see here an example of one of those promotion emails and social posts. And so the great thing here is that you can come in here, you can look in the library, and there will be everything that you need to both promote the webinar and then follow up after the webinar. So there's some great follow-up emails, following up after that webinar and sort of seeing if they'd like to sort of have more information, or at least thanking them for attending and sort of hope that they got value out of it. Now, the fourth article we're going to look at is specifically on selling in that cash flow and profit improvement meeting. And the point at which you would probably send this is after you have done some of those other emails and social posts, and then maybe after even that webinar. So you have earned the right to send it to them. So it's not just coming cold out of the blue. You have been warming them up to this particular topic, and ideally they have begun to engage with it and show a level of interest. So let's say, for example, that we are going to send this out, and I'll just show you how to do it in Boma, so you get the idea of how you can take gap content and really easily disseminate it out to your potential leads. So we'll click on deliver, we'll click on email, because we're just going to do this as an email today. We could do social as well. And the first step is to think about the contacts. So I'm going to come in here, and if I go show, you can see all of my contacts. And on the right-hand side, you can see here the tags that I have assigned to each of my contacts. In particular, you can see this cash flow improvement lead. So you would have assigned that particular tag to people who have maybe opened previous emails on this topic, or in fact have come to that webinar on the topic. So if I search for cash flow improvement lead, you can see here I've got 11 recipients. Obviously, these are just our demo ones, but I'll save and close, and that is my audience selected. So we know that this piece of content is going to go to people who are really interested in this topic. Now let's think about how the email is going to look. We'll select template, we'll go into branded templates, and the great thing with Boma is that you don't have to copy and paste into your email. Client will select full article, and Boma is going to basically take the content that you selected, and then it's going to inject it into your email template, and it's all done for you. So you can see here at the top, we've got the logo of our imaginary accounting firm, we've got the image, and then everything else is beautifully laid out. So all the formatting, all the headings, it's all done for you. Now, all you need to do is maybe think about customizing it. And I'm just going to do a very basic customization, and that is to personalize it. So the first name tag here is going to pull the first name out of all your contacts, and so it's a personalized email, and that's always a great thing to do. Now, as I said before, all the content in here you can edit further if you want. We don't restrict you from making any changes, but for today's purposes, I'm just going to add a sign off, and then I'm going to have a drag in a button, and that button is the call to action. So in this case, I'll just say contact us. And there's a number of different ways that they could contact you. So if I click into here, you can see that I could insert a URL. So this might be a URL to a section on your website that talks about this meeting, or maybe it is actually to a Calendly link, or where they can actually book in a time to chat. You could also have them send you an email that's quite direct, or you could have them make a call. So you might have clients for a section of your leads who are always on the go, and you just want to make it as easy as possible. So you're just going to put your telephone number in there, and they can click through on their phone and come and chat to you. So once you're happy with how the email looks, you can preview it. You can see here that it's mobile responsive. So whatever platform your clients and leads are looking at it on, it will look beautiful. And then click out of the preview and save and close. So the last step is just to think about the subject line and preview description. Now, these are always important to help increase the likelihood of people opening that email. So with content that is from the Boma content library, we will always suggest a really good subject line. But if you do want to edit that or make it a little bit more your own, you can go in here and make changes, and that goes for the preview description as well. Now, the email address is from your default setup, so you will decide on an email address that you want it to go out from. But if you did say want to change it to come from a different email address, you saw that I can just change it in here, and this email will come from another person or another address in your firm. Always a good idea to send yourself a test email just to make sure it's looking as you'd expect, all the buttons are working, or if you have a third party or someone else within your firm, they could even send you a test email. Now, the last step is just to schedule. I can send it right now, or I can choose a time in the future. You might say, great, I want it to go out next Monday, just after midday, and schedule it. Now, if I come to the dashboard, you can see that of my latest campaigns, that's there and ready to go out next week. Now, while we're quickly in Boma, just before we jump out, I think it's important just to mention that there is a huge amount of content in Boma. So you can see here, we've got all the different categories. These content articles in Boma are updated every week, and they cover a huge variety of topics. You can see them down the left-hand side: compliance, general, management and strategy, people or HR, sales and marketing, tax and tech. There's also, for any gappies out there, so there is also their premium library, and that's obviously the content that we've been showing you today. And there is a huge amount of categories here. And this is where you come in here and search for your improving of debtor days or your webinar invitations. There's so much in here. So if you are a GAP member and you're also on Boma, do make sure that you have access to this library, because it's super, super powerful. So now I think we've shown them enough of how Boma and the GAP work together. Shall I hand back to you and you can talk through the process for the improvement meeting?
Cool. Thanks, Charles. Yep. Awesome. Just quickly, I'll jump through, I guess, the defined thinking behind the improvement meeting, then I'll show you the content and the tools that we have in the GAP. So essentially, there's kind of some principles around why we've created the improvement system in the way we have. Now, you don't have to use the GAP system, you can use your own system if you want, but really, when it comes to an improvement meeting or any advisory service, we highly recommend you have a clear system so that your team can leverage their time and you can deliver that service consistently. Secondly, once you've got that proposal signed off, you're going to obviously have to schedule the meeting and prepare for that meeting. And as part of that, we believe it's fundamental to provide some digital pre-work. And I'll show you what our pre-work looks like, but it allows your clients to do a bit of the heavy lifting before they arrive at the meeting, and for you to prepare and be able to go much deeper into the strategies that are going to have the biggest impact for them. Then you'll meet with them, you'll go through, provide some education to the topic that you're meeting with them about. You might provide them some resources of value to take away, and you'll use a tool to demonstrate some various scenarios, what it could look like for them if they made some simple improvements, and then some strategies for them to go forth and make those improvements. And of course, at the end of that meeting, it's going to be a great opportunity to talk to them about how they found the meeting and whether or not they would like to meet with you on a more ongoing, regular basis. And that would then allow you to move them into some specific coaching, like cash flow management coaching, or into a more generic coaching framework. And obviously, we've got the tools for that in the GAP app as well. So hopefully you can all see that I am now in the GAP app. And I'll just briefly show you, we've got a whole lot here around lead generation.
Sorry, Nat, it's not showing.
Oh, gosh. Okay, one moment. I had this problem the other day. Okay. Just have to reshare it. One moment, people. How's that?
That's showing. Great.
Great. Okay. So we're in the GAP app. We've got all of these areas of lead generation. So this is all content that's going to help you, content and systems to drive leads for your advisory services. Now, a number of these have a clear integration with the Boma app, which means it's very easy for you to go in and push out content, edit and push out that content that's going to drive your services. And we have, I believe, about 30 webinar content kits in here, which we know are proving very valuable for GAP members to be able to get leads in their advisory services. It's a very leveraged way to go and market yourself. But today we'll look at the improvement meetings piece here, and specifically cash flow and profit improvement. Now we've got a clear process guide. I won't go into that today. You can see here that this is a piece of information, an article specifically about the service that you can send to those prospects or clients who are really warmed up at this point. And this is that integration via Boma. We've also got a very clear proposal. I'll show you the example. You can brand it up very easily. Your logo will pull through. In it for you, we've defined very clear objectives, measures of success and value, and we've outlined what the proposed service is. So it's very clear that it's a 90-minute meeting that the client is going to get this value from it. And they're going to sign this proposal digitally or get an email with a link to accept it electronically. So very easy way to get that proposal signed off, and then you can schedule the meeting. We've got preparation checklists to make sure that you've done a little bit of groundwork before the meeting and that you're all ready to go. We've got very specific meeting pre-work form. So this is the overarching email. It's already prepared for you. You simply select your client, put in the time and date of the meeting. You can edit any of this content if you wish to, and also the pre-work questions if you wish to. So the client will get the email. There'll be a link for them to electronically complete their pre-work. And we're going to ask them a number of questions that relate to, I guess, where they are on their advisory journey. Do they have a business plan? What do they know about forecasting? Do they know anything about terms of trade and other things? How commercial are they? And that's going to help us kind of get to the value we can provide quicker. We're going to ask them for some specific information. We're going to plug into a tool to demonstrate how we can help them improve areas of cash flow. And we're going to ask them questions around what they've already attempted in terms of cash flow improvement. And then we're going to ask for some specific data that we'll put into that calculator to look at how we can grow their business and some other questions. So we go quite deep pre-work. Again, that heavy lifting is really done by the client. And if it allows you to have a really robust conversation in the meeting with them. Now we've got a calculator here. I'm not going to go into that. Essentially, you input some of that data, you pull some levers, you demonstrate what could be, and then you get to the heart of those strategies that's going to help them improve a couple of things and get some wins from this meeting. We also have some resources that we recommend you provide to your clients as part of that meeting. I'll show you what they look like. Essentially 4 resources, auto-branded with your logo. You'll talk through the Business 101 cycle with them in that meeting and help them understand what makes that spin and how to accelerate that. You're going to talk about their cash conversion cycle and actually calculate that for them so they can understand what happens if they speed that process up. You're going to go through the 7 key causes of poor cash flow. And at this point, you're going to recognise that although they can't address all of these or some of these today, there's real opportunity beyond the meeting with you, that first improvement meeting, to make more improvements. And then last resource is all about the 7 ways to grow your business, which speaks to that profit or growth piece. So lots of opportunities in here for your client. Great conversation starter. I'll show you our delivery notes briefly, which speaks to the order with which you'll run the meeting. Going to give you all of that necessary information so that you can go into the meeting feeling confident. Going to tell you how you'll prepare for it, what the client outcomes will be. It's detailing the agenda, everything that you're going to speak to during the session. It even gives you guiding scripting really that you can use word for word if you really wanted to, or you could adapt it, but it allows you to practice how you're going to deliver that meeting and have those notes as a safety net while you're running the session in case you get lost. You're going to go through that cash conversion cycle and all of those resources that I showed you just before that you will then provide to the client after the meeting. So the intention is to really educate them during the meeting and make sure they walk away with those meeting minutes that have clearly defined tasks and actions for them to go and do after the meeting so that they can turn what they've learned into some meaningful outcome. Yes, and so on that, at the end of that meeting, when you position some kind of ongoing service, perhaps it's cash flow management coaching, it's worth noting that in the GAP app, we have all sorts of resources in this cash flow management piece, including 8 different pre-works that target those specific causes of cash flow headaches. So there's no shortage of content and ways to engage your clients through coaching through our app. So I'm just going to go back here. We've kind of talked about the delivery tools, which is great. So I just wanted to recap Charles, and jump in at any point here around how that meeting is designed to leverage, to be leveraged for improving your advisory outcomes. And I think,
Nat, your screen hasn't changed.
oh gosh. All right, one moment. Seems to work a little bit differently today. Bless technology. We are. Is it working?
Yeah.
Great. Awesome. So one thing that we mentioned, or we saw in the pre-work, I think, was that, you know, your clients are used to you talking to the numbers. That's why in some ways it's safest and easiest to stay selling around that management reporting and cash flow forecasting kind of space. But when we start to move into the improvement meeting piece, it creates a real natural dialogue around taking those tangible things and taking them a step further and helping them understand how they can work with you on an ongoing basis to really improve their practices in their business, how they reflect on their business and how they keep pushing and improving. And the whole process positions you as an expert, from the pre-work to the resources you provide to the conversations you're having. And it really does introduce that discipline around planning and reporting, which helps naturally push business planning as well. So you're going to give a lot of value in the session, and it's that opportunity for the clients to try before they buy. And it's great if you're feeling less confident around positioning some of those higher priced services. But also it's a fantastic opportunity for your senior team members to kind of find their way into advisory as well before taking that leap towards delivering ongoing coaching or business planning, for example. So there's some really great things that can come out of offering an improvement meeting to your clients. All right, so just quickly, all roads kind of lead to Rome. And if we think back to that value ladder, really we want to be moving our clients up from the improvement meeting towards those higher price services, and ideally to that premium offer, those 3 essential tools. And I just wanted to share a mindset that kind of speaks to how you might do this in your business, especially to those who are finding it a bit of a struggle to start with positioning their advisory services. So this mindset here was introduced to us by a GAP member, the decisions mindset. And it's really easy to look at advisory as a thing that you need to tackle like massively and go through that huge change management. And I'm definitely not diminishing the time investment it takes to get good traction with advisory, but you can start small. And I think that the improvement meeting is a great opportunity to start small and see the impact of some of those small incremental decisions and steps that you take along the way. So essentially, if you've got a goal, say you want to deliver 3 improvement meetings in a quarter, there are going to be many moments or opportunities where you could have a conversation with a client or offer that to a client before that deadline of that quarter arrives. And every time you make a green light decision to bring it up or to do some marketing, you know, that's an opportunity to make progress, and it creates a mini positive feedback loop for yourself, building your own confidence. And then you get that boost to keep going and just pushing it a little bit further. And so making green light decisions around something like improvement meeting is a great way to build confidence and move forward with your advisory. But it's also a great way to help your clients start making green light decisions when it comes to how they get better business practices in their businesses and how they can move up towards feeling confident doing ongoing business planning and annual forecasting and reporting and accountability coaching with you. And so there's a real nice synergy between you being on this journey, but also your clients being on this journey up to the top of that value ladder. So I thought it'd be good, Charles, if you could recap on some of those marketing opportunities to push the improvement meeting, because they're pretty simple, really.
Yeah, thanks, Nat. So I think first up, send out that cash flow improvement related content via Boma. Get that topic in front of clients, start to educate them on it. You can use the webinar to build their understanding and really demonstrate your knowledge and expertise in the area. And the nice thing about the webinar is that obviously, unlike an email or a social post, it will be an opportunity for you to almost sort of, I know it's one to many, but they'll be able to see you, hear your voice. You'll be able to really sort of speak in depth about this knowledge that you have and this area, and give examples that are going to be relevant to them. I have seen some webinars where actually they don't just accept questions like we are in the chat box, but they allow people to actually sort of raise their hand and sort of yell out questions almost as they go. So a really nice way to build that, I suppose, familiarity on a topic and with you. Once you've had that webinar and you've been sending out that content, don't just stop. Make sure that you keep on nurturing them. So it is a bit of a nurture game. As Nat said before, you really need to sort of invest in this over time. So they may not be ready on the just straight after the webinar. So make sure you continue to nurture them. And then, as Nat said, green light that decision to sort of engage with them further and help them take those first steps on the value ladder. I would also challenge you to think about how you can use educational marketing in general to educate your clients and make them aware of your expertise and promote your other services. And we did look briefly at all the other content in Boma, both the GAP's content and our content. And really, there's no better place out there to source content than through the content library. You'll find an amazing array of topical insights in there. I'm talking about so many different topics that are going to be relevant to your different clients. And if you want to be able to continue with your marketing activity, whilst also we understand being busy within your sort of the day-to-day running of your firm, I really recommend that you give Boma and the GAP to give a look.
Yeah, cool. So I guess next steps, we do encourage you to complete the exit survey on the way out. It's always great for you to know that you can do a free trial of Boma or the GAP, or have a demo with one of our dedicated team members. And of course, if you are a GAP and Boma member and you haven't unlocked that premium content, then reach out to anyone at either organisation and we'll get you sorted there. Now I think we'll move to Q&A. It's come to my attention that apparently the chat panel's not quite working today, so.
Oh no, it was, Nat. It was just when you shared it, it just went to panelists and hosts, but I did share it again out to everyone. So hopefully
I just had feedback from a team member that nothing's happening via chat now. So if you are looking to ask a question, I do recommend putting it through the questions pane just in case. I think there's been an upgrade with Zoom, and it's something to do with what the settings are that when you set up the webinar, it's kind of changed a bit, but all good. So questions. Who's got some questions?
We had one just while we wait for anyone, because I know people might be sort of getting ready to ask a question. But we had a really good one last night in the UK, Nat, and that was about pricing for these, and your view on whether or not you should sort of offer a money back guarantee at this level. And I think you had some really insightful answers, positioning a cash flow improvement meeting versus some of the higher value meetings, and kind of your strategy for this.
Yeah. So there were two questions. Firstly, what would you charge? And I had to be honest and say we can't really recommend a price for a meeting like this, but because we're not in a position to be accused of kind of setting that price for the industry. But what I would say is that there's a lot of value being given in that meeting, and you should price accordingly, and don't undercharge yourselves for a meeting of this nature, because the clients will get immense value from it. And if you follow a process where you've got a very clearly defined proposal, and it's very clear what the client's going to do before the meeting, during the meeting, and after the meeting, and what they're going to get for that, then it's going to be clear to them what they're buying, and they're not going to question that price. That said, when it comes to guarantees, some firms are really comfortable doing it. And if that's the way firms want to operate, that's fantastic. I would say, for me personally, the distinction between a one-off meeting that might have a price tag around, $400-500 or something like that, compared to maybe a $3,000 service, I could understand there being a little bit more hesitancy for a client on, jumping on the bigger tier service rather than the smaller service. So it might be more appropriate to offer, a guarantee at that level if they're a bit apprehensive. But really, it's everyone's doing it differently. Everyone's got different comfort levels. And I think if you are a bit apprehensive about starting a new service like this, then you could charge a bit lower to begin with and offer it to some of those, close clients where you can say openly, hey, I'm going to try and use this new process with you and I want your feedback, and you can drop that price down until your confidence has reached the point where you know that it's worth charging, a decent amount for, because you've invested in either a product like the Gap and Boma, and you know that the value is there in the content, or because you're just confident in your delivery.
And actually that leads right on to an interesting situation, which it sounds like I bet a few of you have found yourself in, which is sometimes you're in the middle of a catch-up conversation that ends up as an improvement meeting. How do you sort of then charge? And that's really an interesting one, because you started it off sort of without any expectation of charging, and then you sort of go into that meeting. Would that be a case, Nat, of sort of identifying to the person, look, we've moved the conversation into this area, and this is something that I would usually charge for? How would you approach it?
Well, there's kind of a number of ways, and it depends on what that client conversation was, whether it was in an annual accounts review meeting or whether it was a distress call about something that they rung you about. One thing we're quite big on at the Gap is offering a quick query service, and that might be included in your annual compliance fee. But essentially, if something can be raised and resolved in 10 minutes, then it's free. But if it's something that you need to go deeper on to be able to do them a real service, or you could actually do them like you could do it quite badly because you're making assumptions to get to the outcome, then you need to position that. And one thing's for sure, they're not going to get the value from that meeting if they don't go through that pre-work process and that self-discovery before the session. So that's a really great way to position it. You could say something like, there are great opportunities here, but for you to get the best outcome from this conversation and for me to be able to support you appropriately, I think we pause here and we look at offering this particular service where I'm actually going to be able to educate you, get some pre-work from you, go deeper, give you the best strategies for your position, and also some resources and things that will help you beyond the meeting. What do you think? Because that will be the best value for them at the end of the day.
Nice. And an interesting question, well, sort of a statement, but I definitely very much up that value ladder that you were talking about, Nat, that it looks like a great stepping stone for clients. And I suppose that is really the point. It is that point that they can step off from sort of, free conversations to that first sort of ladder, step on the ladder value and start paying.
Fair to accounting firms, a lot of accountants and bookkeepers are kind of offering something of this nature in an ad hoc way, but that by not charging for it and separating it from that other conversation, A, you're not being able to charge for it, but B, you're not being able to invest in doing it really, really well. And I think there's also that misconception sometimes that a client isn't prepared to pay a reasonably small fee for something like that, but actually that might be our assumptions. And so it's best to position it and continue that marketing. And then I think you find that it's a great stepping stone for them, for those clients who are keen to learn and develop, but not quite sure how to do that.
Nice. And then this is just a question around the webinar kits. They do include everything from the emails that we saw, but also the suggested scripts and everything, don't they?
So yes, absolutely. So everything that's sent via Boma is the marketing piece and sometimes the follow-up piece, but everything that's in the Gap app, we have, all of that marketing again, which is integrated with the Boma application. We've got the PowerPoint templates that are beautifully crafted with delivery notes, and you can put your own branding through them. We've got worksheets as well, which we recommend as kind of freebies to be given to attendees who are particularly engaged, but just not quite ready to sign off on, say, one of your top tier services. And that might be a bit of an online worksheet where you ask some questions around the niggles in their business that are related to the topic of the webinar. And then you get a copy of that as the facilitator. And so, if they don't connect the dots that they need to work with you at that point, then you can give them a call in a month or two's time and actually refer to that document and ask them some questions, and then say to them directly, it looks like you'd really benefit from one of our services.
Fantastic. Well, look, that's all the questions we have, and we've only gone a minute or two over time, so I think that's we've done well for time. Oh, actually, just one more question. I'm actually not. Nat, can you see the question? I
kind of, and I'm going to make some assumptions here. I think, are you asking whether or not, say, these advisory products should be tailor-made? And I guess, I think if I'm clear on the question, at the Gap, for us, it's about providing a framework, a really clear framework, and then using things like the pre-work to go deeper into what's unique in the client's business and how you can apply the framework to help them uniquely in their business. So no business is the same, we get that for sure, but absolute priced or tailor-made. So I'm just seeing a follow-up, priced or tailor-made. I'm not quite sure I'm clear on the question.
I think it was saying as in should it be productized, and so you sort of go out and say, look, this is our product, and sort of one size fits all, or should it be tailored to each sort of, or like the pricing should be sort of tailored, the product should be tailor-made to each individual client. That's how I read it anyway.
If we're talking about pricing, you can tailor the pricing of various services. For example, with business planning, it might be a much more complex undertaking with a bigger company than it would be with a smaller company, so absolutely. But when it comes to the actual process, sometimes it's a case of trusting the process and recognizing that their uniqueness will be extracted as part of that process, but there's still best practice in there behind that's actually quite relevant for every business. If that's kind of, maybe I'm giving you some clarity there, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and he followed up saying, yes, e.g. $300 for a cash flow forecast, so I think, yeah,
absolutely. Some firms are definitely charging differently for those advisory services based on size of business, complexity, you know. But for example, with business planning, if you've got a lot of owners or people in the business, we're going to have to achieve alignment amongst all of them. So it might be a longer, more drawn out process, more pre-work to engage with, and more kind of niggles to work through. So absolutely, price for that and tailor that. And hey, you can take a system like the Gap and you can adjust it how you see fit as well. You know, there's no one way of doing things.
Fantastic. Well, no more questions. So thanks everyone so much for your time. Just to reiterate, we will be sending out a recording of this tomorrow. And if you do have a chance to answer the exit survey, we'd really love to get your views. We'll ask you how valuable you found today, so really useful for us for future webinars. And as Nat said, it will also you can also indicate if you'd like to learn more about the Gap or Boma. So thanks so much, Nat, and thanks so much everyone for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Great to do it again, Charles. See you at the next webinar.